Hey class, welcome to today's lesson and happy Monday. We are still in our financial literacy unit, which means being knowledgeable about finances. And today we are going over interest, in particular, simple and compound interest. Now, if you look at your formula chart here, you'll notice that we have different topics here. And if you go down to the bottom where it says additional information, we have our simple and compound interest. So simple compound interest. And here are the formulas for that. I'm going to be explaining what these mean for the next 2 days. Today, we're going to be focusing mostly on simple interest, but let's go and remind you about what interest is. So interest is the amount of money that is collected or paid for the use of money. For example, I place money into the bank in a savings account, and they say they're going to pay me a couple of interest points. So interest like 5% or something. They're going to pay me interest on the amount that I inserted or deposited into that bank account. So what they're going to do is I'm going to insert this money. That is called, the money that I insert is called principal, the amount of money deposited or borrowed. So what's going to happen is my principal, the amount of money that I deposited, let's say $400, they say they're going to pay me 5%. What they're going to do is they're going to calculate 5% of this total amount, and they're going to add it into my account. Okay. And then the next year, they're going to take a little bit of that and add that amount into my account, and it's going to keep stacking the longer I keep it in there, because they use it and they make a profit off of that money and gain interest. And so they pay us a small portion of that interest. Now, in the case of borrowing money, they're charging us interest for borrowing that money. So they're going to charge a small percentage of the amount borrowed, and you're going to have to pay that every year until you pay it off. And so principal is the original amount deposited. Interest is the money you collect or you pay based off borrowing that money. Okay? So here are our objectives today. Our objectives are: I will know and develop an economic way of thinking and problem solving. I will understand how to calculate simple and compound interest. And here it says I will be able to write and explain the formula, variables, meanings. So be able to explain what each variable means in the simple interest formula. So here is our simple interest. Here's our simple interest formula right here. It says I equals PRT. Okay. Now, I, P, R, and T are variables. Okay. And some of these variables will be given to you. Okay. And some will not. And you are supposed to solve for the one that is not given to you. So I stands for the amount of interest earned. I equals interest earned. P stands for principal, the initial amount or the amounts that you deposit or borrow. R stands for rate. Okay. It's expressed as a percentage, but when you calculate it, you'll need it as a decimal. And T stands for time, and time in years. Okay. So for compound interest, I made myself too big. Okay. This one is compound interest. Now, A stands for the total value, which means the total amount. P stands for principal, R stands for rate, and T stands for time in years. And we'll go over that more tomorrow. So again, I is interest paid or earned. P is the principal amount collected or borrowed. Okay, no, P is the principal amount deposited or borrowed. R is the rate, interest rate. are expressed as a percentage, but you'll need to change it to a decimal, and T stands for time. So here's an example. So let's say Julio has placed $400 in a simple interest saving account, simple interest that earns 5% annually. How much interest? Let's just focus on the first one because there's two questions here. How much interest did she earn at the end of 1 year? So we want to know how much interest is earned at the end of 1 year. So I know this is simple interest, so I'm going to write down my simple interest formula. So I'm going to write down simple interest. And so I'm going to write down the formula. I equals PRT. Well, you have to first understand what's going on between these letters or numbers because these are variables. So what's happening between these variables, what operation is happening? Well, if you don't see an operation, you automatically know that it's multiplication. So my I is the interest earned. Well, in my question, it's asking how much interest is earned, so I don't know that. My P stands for principal, which is the initial amount, and that would be $400. My R stands for rate, which is the interest rate earned annually, which would be 5%. Or when I calculate it, it needs to be in decimal form, just like we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks. And T stands for time, which in this case is 1 year. Okay. Now, I do want to say, if this said 12 months, we would just put it in 1 because this time is expressed by years. So in this case, if it says 36 months, we'll talk about that. All right. So let's stay here. So now we don't have I, but we do have P, which is 400. So instead of putting P, let me write it up here. So instead of putting P, I'm putting 400. I'm going to multiply, and I'm going to multiply times the rate expressed as a decimal, and then times the time, which is 1 year. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply. So let me move myself here. So I'm going to multiply 400 times 5/10. No, that's not 5/10. It's 5/100. Okay, so let me change that. And so that's going to be 0, 0, 20, 0, 0, 0, and it's going to be 20. I have 2 decimal places here, so I'd move over 2 decimal places here, and that'll be $20 that they've earned. So for my statement, it will be Julio earned $20 in interest for after 1 year. And that is how you that's how you perform a simple interest calculation. Now, I encourage you to go into your sample problems that I will be supplying for you and looking at the videos after you've worked them out to see if you've done it correctly. And then completing your independent practice, which I will be looking out to assess to see if you've learned it or need extra help. Always reach out to me if you on Schoology or come into my office hours if you need any extra help. This week, we are doing the universal screening. And so you'll have to reach out to me directly through direct message on Schoology if you need any help, but I'd be more than willing to. So let me know if you need any help, and I'll be glad to help you. Take care.